Hello, welcome to Podcast Cold Turkey. Bienvenue au Podcast Cold Turkey. Je prends quelques secondes pour vous dire que le podcast a besoin de vos encouragements sur les différentes plateformes de podcast. Donc, je vous encourage à aller mettre les thumbs up, les étoiles, les revues aussi, peut-être écrire juste un mot pour vous dire si vous avez aimé l'expérience, si vous avez apprécié le podcast. And the podcast needs a bit of your help. It would be just so appreciated of you to put the star rating, put a little review if you appreciate it, and you can actually share as well. Vous pouvez partager le podcast. Tout ça sera très apprécié. Et sans plus attendre, je vous laisse au podcast. Salut. Hey, Kim, how you doing?
I am good, Alex. And how are you?
I'm doing great. Like I was telling you, my night routine with my son, and I come down in the studio just running, and it's so I sound out of breath, kind of out there, and then I kind of have to regroup and come back. So,
No problem.
um, first question I got for you: where are you located?
I'm in Millbrook, Ontario,
Okay,
Canada.
and yeah, I mean, like we're neighbors, so I'm in Quebec.
Oh, not too well. Yeah, I'm closer than I was. I was in Newmarket, Ontario, and I recently
Okay.
moved. Yeah.
Um, the first question I keep asking it, only because like I see that like as the pandemic progresses, I think a lot about like the people that suffer from isolation, anxiety, like fear of going outside, like as it progresses. How has been the pandemic for you so far?
Well, I would have said that I didn't have too much of an effect on me at the beginning because I was used to isolating anyways. And I liked my alone time. And I mean, certainly there was a lot of that, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So actually, I kind of was not. It we had just moved. I had just moved out of my house into a rental. So I was in the rental for 2 weeks when the pandemic started. So it was a big transitional time for me. I don't, even though I say that it didn't affect me so much, that was a big year for my healing. I had just come out of a rehab the year before. And it was probably on month September, October, November, December, January, February, month 6 of my sobriety when the
Wow.
pandemic, when COVID, when the lockdown started for the first time in 2020. So, yeah. Um, Whereas everybody's, a lot of people, I'm not going to say everybody, but a lot of people turned to alcohol in those first few weeks to, as they
You got
waited
rid
it
of
out.
it.
Yeah.
You
Oh, we
you
were,
got rid of it proactively.
we were waiting. Everybody was kind of waiting it out, thinking, okay, this will be over, right?
Yeah.
And then as it didn't, it gets harder not to, because you're like, oh, well, I want to drown away my sorrows as well. But
Yes.
I also knew enough to know that what would happen if I even had one, and I knew enough to recognize, even though I was really early in my sobriety, I worked really hard, and I'd made it through a lot of, big monumental like moments of when I wanted to drink and I didn't. And I just did it how we're supposed to, day by day. And sometimes it was hour by hour. And I kept
Yeah.
myself busy as well,
There's
which helped. Yeah, within the house. But yeah, I always am kind of squirrely. I don't sit for long. Always.
the most important question I got for you is, was 6 months enough to build yourself a strong network of people you could rely on, reach at, like to actually like kind of,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Yeah. Absolutely, and I did. I had it before, even then. I had like, yes, I have those people, but did I? No. I never
Mm.
reached out to anybody during, and that's just what I was used to, and that's what I did. The only person I talked to is my psychologist weekly at the time, and yeah, and she helped. But really, that was it. I didn't have a partner throughout this, so and my daughters, I would never include them in these kind of conversations because they don't need that crap. They got
You don't
enough.
want to worry. No, exactly. You don't want to worry anyone.
No, and I was worried about their mental health during COVID as well. So, you know, and before COVID, it wasn't that I wanted to put my shit on their plate, so to speak.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah, the people that you open your gut to has to be people that understand. Like, hence why like some of the literature will say there's no one better than an alcoholic to understand another alcoholic. Like, because some of the stuff and the fucked up stuff you think about, like, is cannot be understood by the normal quote unquote people.
No.
Um,
Yeah.
so sometimes it's like such weird thoughts that like anyone that has not gone through it or even remotely close to it would just say, how messed up are you? Like, you think about that, like, yeah, it's kind of a, it's a hunting thought in my mind right now. Um and yeah, I mean, like, it's super important. So the last thing you want is to, like, for example, reach out to my kid, to my kid or to my dad, and just tell him that, like, I feel down or whatever. Like, guy's not gonna sleep for a while. Like, that would be crazy, and that's not what you want. Like, um, and most of the, I would say, like, most of the time, you don't need a solution. You just need to vent off. Um,
That's exactly. Yes. Yes.
you don't need someone that says, well, have you thought of that? Like, oh, fuck off. Like, I sure
Mhm.
did, Sherlock. Like, I sure did. I thought of that, but like, it's not working. Like, I just need to talk about it.
Yeah.
Um,
I didn't say that to my daughter, but she at the time said, "Well, why don't you just stop, mom?" And she wasn't like, I mean, my daughters are 24 and 25, so this wasn't when they were children. It was when they were 23 and 24. And I said, "Listen, if I could, I would. That's the whole point. But if they she didn't understand because she doesn't have a problem, right?"
yeah, absolutely.
She's healthy. She's a healthy drinker. So when I believe me, it was my last ditch effort. I didn't want to wind up where I was, and I'm the one who said that's where I need to go because I can't control myself. And I didn't like that. I was quite aware that I was killing myself, and I wasn't accepting that that was at my own hand, you know? So
Yes.
it, yeah.
And as time progresses, the people around you, like, there's a reason why, like, the Al-Anon was created. Like, it's for people around alcoholics and addicts to understand, like, our kind of our thought process. And as you progress yourself through your sobriety, you kind of discover, and people around you discover that, like, alcohol was just one habit of, mostly obsessive compulsive behaviors. And and sometimes, like, the alcohol was just accelerating the self-destruction, but like, you can actually self-destruct by behaving the same way with money, um relations, um sex, whatever. So, like, there's definitely a discovery, or at least a discovery of yourself by yourself, and then, like, people around you saying, "Oh, you know, that's what I described as intense for a while about my mom or my sister or my friend." Yeah, like, it's the it's the alcoholic in me that like, even with, roller coasters, like dangerous sports or whatever, it comes through, and sometimes in passion, hobbies, and so on. So taking risks, living a bit on the edge, like enjoying like kind of a fast pace, high adrenaline rush, like it's something that, like our, um, that, like you quickly realize that, holy shit, like that was I would say, like some of the alcoholism, what makes a good alcoholic, let's say, so, not that there's a guide for it, but, like it's, like I still to this day, like 16-ish year later, um, I can easily fall into obsessive and compulsive thoughts, and I always need to be careful, whatever, not whatever, but some stuff that I engage in. um I need to be careful. I need to be careful.
Yeah, I hear you.
I start my podcast, at the exception of, like that pandemic question, which I can't freaking wait to stop asking about it. But but
Mhm.
the podcast usually starts with me asking my guests to rewind their life story, tape in their mind, and bring me back to kind of that important event, or you witnessing. Sometimes it's either you using, or something that you consider has made a dent into your life story for, like some of the future events that comes your way.
You lost me. Sorry.
No, 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 I was just asking, um like, bring me back to kind of that, like at a young age, some of the
Oh, okay.
more important events that, has pretty much made a dent into your life, like, or your psyche, that made who you are, like, or that you think that has made you who you are.
Okay, I got you. You mean that might have led to some addiction problems?
Sure. Like sometimes it's, like the our own personal use, or, like it sometimes is witnessing someone else using, like either by you're impressed by someone else using, and, like it kind of quote unquote inspires you, or you want to mimic that, like, and sometimes it's like I said, like it's your own use that, like has, like you realize that, holy shit, that moment like I without even knowing, like I kind of fell in love with it.
Um, well, I grew up in an alcoholic home, so actually I was turned off by it completely. My dad died from a heart attack. He had cirrhosis of the liver. He died in our apartment. We had two fridges in the apartment. One was all booze. I was there the morning he died. I gave him mouth to mouth resuscitation. I despised it because I could smell the alcohol on his breath, the stale alcohol. And he was dead when I did that. So I had years and years and years of resentment towards him for that, because, of course, that was all his fault.
Yeah.
um, which, like, I mean, up until a couple of years ago, I wasn't over it. I thought I was, but I wasn't. Now it's just a sad story. But yeah, so that would probably be a number one.
How old
Before
were you?
that, I was 12.
And
Uh,
what was the sibling, kind of the family picture, like
it was
were your
just me.
parents?
I had
Okay, it was just you.
yeah, two sisters, but they were both moved out. I was like an afterthought. My parents had me later in life.
Okay.
So my mom was 40 and my dad was 44 when I was born. So they were already gone and had their own children. As a matter of fact, that's how big the age difference is. So
Wow.
I was an aunt before I was born, so
Were
to speak.
you were your parents together?
Yep.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah, they were together 36 years up to that point when he died.
And you said, like it was kind of an alcohol-infused household.
Kinda.
Um,
Uh,
was
it
it
was completely all alcohol. He didn't eat anymore. He'd been drinking since he was 14 years old. Like I said, we had a second fridge in an apartment, like a second full-sized fridge in an apartment, a two-bedroom apartment, that was just filled with beer. Beer was his drink. So, and he was a postman. So when they worked, they walked and they carried a satchel and they went door to door in the apartments back then and put the mail into each apartment door. And so he had a lot of buddies and they would invite him in during his route and they would drink. And he had a bottle in his satchel. And yeah, he was hardcore, hardcore. The doctors said that they could not believe that he worked because he did. He worked up to 3 days before he died and he refused to go to the hospital. I didn't even know what was going on, right? Um, I was oblivious to it because whatever, he was on the couch. He was always on the couch or he was at work. I didn't even think that he was sick. But he did work up. Like they were surprised that he worked up until he did. And he always told my mother that he would do that to make sure that her and I were well taken care of. Which, I mean, whatever that means when you're, when my mom didn't work and we lived in an apartment and my dad was a mailman, well taken care of meant a small pension for my mom and I. And then she went back to school and worked part time.
was it like because like when there's a lot of alcohol, it's either um party or like kind of more happy driven or more sad or violent or angry, like what kind of like what kind of alcoholic your dad was?
By the time I came along, he wasn't, it wasn't physical. Earlier, because my sisters, I talked to them and what their upbringing was like with the same parents, but in different generations. Yeah, there was physical um, fights between the two of them, but they never left each other. Not my mother still professes her love, and she never got remarried or even had a boyfriend or anything after my dad died. And that's a long. She's still alive. She's 90. So she lost her husband when she was 52, and she's 90 now. So it's a
Wow.
long time. Yeah. So even though he was an ass and she could have done better, she stuck with him because she loved him. But that isn't unusual either, right? Like you know,
Absolutely.
yeah, it's, I mean, it wasn't that he was I mean, even when they fought, it doesn't mean that he was just the arse. I have no idea. I wasn't there, right? I don't know. But no, when my generation came, it was mostly he went to work, he was home, and he was on the couch. And then he would drink and then he would pass out and
Hmm.
repeat. And that was it. He had nothing to do with me and my schooling, never came to one school function, never took me, he walked me home once from school. I remember that. And I think we attempted to go for a walk with my mother once. Not, I think I remember it was the only time I ever remember being outside walking with my father. And 2 weeks in, 2 blocks into the walk, he fell because he couldn't walk, right? Because I mean, he was too drunk. So then we went home. So that's my dad. So I don't have a bond. I never felt a bond. If you look at pictures, there's not me and him with our arms around each other. It looks like two strangers leaning up against each other on the couch. Just because, I mean, yeah, friends didn't want to come over because he was an embarrassment.
Was your mom drinking at all?
My mother, in my time, not so much. No, not that I remember before he died. She was not. She was my rock, and that's why I kind of was. I was good with him dying, and that's the truth. I was good with him dying because I thought life is going to be great with just my mom and I, and that totally was almost worse because She turned into the alcoholic, grieving her husband, made me her spouse by,
Hmm.
like, because the company was gone. So I became her company. And I like crying to me and everything every day, every night after school. No, it was awful. And it was awful because when your rock does that, and I had nobody, and I
And
was just alone.
what kind of kid were you? Like at
I
school,
was a
like,
loner. I was a
yeah?
loner. Yeah, I was. And I chose that. There were popular kids in school and stuff, but I didn't want to be them. I was never jealous or anything. I just wanted to be left alone. I made friends with the kids who were bullied. I wasn't ever bullied, um, but I made friends with the kids that were bullied, if that makes any sense, just because I didn't like the other kids. And yeah, that's just always been the way I've always gone for the underdogs. And yeah,
Y
that's
yeah,
just,
you don't wanna get along with those that, rise and shine, right? Like, you probably were more, keen to, um, eventually fall in love, but, like, or get along with the outliers and the, you know like, the people that, like, make less noise.
yeah. Yeah, I wasn't loud, I wasn't boisterous. I was actually the opposite. And yeah. And then I decided to be a police officer. So it was kind of shocking to my family, but not shocking when it falls right into line of what the children of alcoholics do, right? The caregiver, it was, I could have been a teacher or a nurse, I suppose, but I picked the difficult. Well, not that any of them are not difficult, but I picked the one that screwed up my mental health. Could have done without that, but that was something that I want to do, is help people. So that's the profession that I went into, and I just turned 20 when I did that. And then a year into that, I lost my best friend to leukemia. She'd been sick for about 3 years, though. Not that that matters, but so that was pretty devastating as well. You were asking about things that might have led to the drinking. Policing obviously led to the drinking, the culture. Well, not to say you drink as a teenager, right? Or like with your friends, like what's normal and what's not, right? You're a kid. We all
Yep.
overdrink. But I can tell you a lot of police officers could way over drink way more. And if you didn't drink back then, you didn't fit in. You weren't trusted. So you had a choice.
You
And that
felt it that
changed.
way, really? You felt that, like, you
I
had
didn't
to?
feel that. It was told to you.
Okay.
That wasn't a feeling. That was told to you. There wasn't anybody who didn't go out. And then when things started changing and the face of police officers started changing, and it wasn't the stereotypical, 6'5" male, white, um, you know, and it started to change, and culture started to change, and you got people that were more like the old farts. They didn't care about fitness. As the new kids, as I call them, started to come on, they were starting to eat properly and bring their lunches and work out and stuff, and a lot of them didn't drink. Oh, and then religions too as well. So this was stuff that was unheard of, because even if you didn't drink when you got on that job, you were either going to be ostracized, and you know yeah, or you drank
Especially
and you
with,
fit
like,
in.
and were you in the first women to actually join the force?
God, no, 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 but
Okay.
thanks. No, you aged me about another I don't even know, 40 years.
No, 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 I'm not
uh,
saying that, like, what I that's not what.
No, I wasn't. I didn't wear a skirt, but I did have the old-fashioned hat, and they were phasing out the yellow cars, and cell phones had just been introduced, and they were in a bag, and we carried them to the car and put the antenna up on them. Two different radios in the car. You had to pay attention to. It was, yeah. And
Well,
yeah.
and the reason why I was asking is, like like you referred to ostracization of, like some of the either the community or like the fact that you drink or not, and was there a bit of that as well? The fact that you were a woman, or you could, like you
Oh
could
yeah.
actually,
Oh
yeah,
yeah, it was worse when you're a woman, right? There's
yeah,
a whole other different package that comes if you're a woman on the job.
absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You have to prove even more.
and you glanced over the, kind of the first drink, despite the fact that like you said, how much you had it in aversion because of, like the event of your father passing. Can do you remember what had brought you to, a kind of flinch and try it?
I think it was just I was 15. I think it was just my friends. It was just peers, that age.
Yep.
And I already do remember that it wasn't even about the taste or anything. I never liked the taste of alcohol whatsoever at all. It was how fast can I drink this to feel no pain? And that continued until 2 years ago. It never stopped. That it was always fast. And my drink of choice, I like beer, but primarily red wine. And then I graduated to expensive red wines. And you're not supposed to chug red wine, especially if it's expensive. It's meant to be sipped and enjoyed, but that wasn't even in my vocabulary. And I'm sure, like everybody else, right? Your go out for dinner bill, your liquor was like 3 times as much as your food on the bill once it came. So yes, I've for many many years, but it got progressively worse. I always suspected I was an alcoholic, but and I won't even say functioning because there is no such thing as a functioning alcoholic. Um, I was surviving and tricking everybody, I guess, right? But
Yeah.
it wasn't every day. But it doesn't have to be every day to know you have a problem, because when you do decide to drink, you can't just have one. I couldn't. I didn't. I wouldn't even bother if I had to only have one. And then I was miserable. And then it changed. It got to the point where then I was miserable if the restaurant didn't have a liquor license and I couldn't drink. Like I'd be bottom lip pout, sticking out, sucky baby, angry that I couldn't get
Yeah.
a drink with my meal because I had to have a drink with every meal. And this was breakfast. This was when they started saying that you could it would open up at breakfast time or something in Ontario. Like I remember thinking, yeah. And then when we went to this place right by my house, they hadn't done that yet, and I was so upset. They had just opened, so they didn't have a liquor license yet. And when I think back to certain behaviors of myself, like everything surrounded alcohol. Everything, every event I went to, everything surrounded me and my drinking. And okay, do I need to get a hotel room? How am I going to get myself home? When can I start drinking before the event? Just and then it's worse, right? You would know when you stop drinking. It seems that everywhere you look, booze is facing you and looking at you. And like I said, before I stopped drinking, I told the doctor I couldn't imagine. I said, I don't. How do you have fun when you're not drinking? I don't understand. Like, and he laughed at me, and I said, I know, I'm dead serious. I don't know how to exist straight. I don't. And
Hmm.
yeah, like, and that's common, I'm sure. Uh,
Absolutely.
yeah. So when that changed for me, and I was like, oh my god, this is so much better than being drunk. Like being high on life itself and on like just and remembering everything that you are doing in the moment and the next day. You can't beat that, right? But it didn't come overnight at all, like man, I never wavered. I haven't, because I listened to everything that I was taught. that, always play the tape forward. I use that one a lot. I know better enough to know that if I was to take one drink or even one sip, besides being sick, I don't know, right? That I would be hooked and I'd want more and more and more. And I can't do it. I don't want to do it because I don't want to go backwards and I never want to go back to rehab again. Because although it wasn't the worst thing in the world, like, you have all these pictures in your head of what it's going to be like because you only have the television to go by. You never know anybody who's really been to one. Um, it was and it wasn't. If I can
Yeah.
say that, you can't. Yeah, it being a police officer going there, I had different concerns for myself. You know.
Was it of your own decision,
Yes.
or you were okay?
No, I knew I was killing myself, and I actually I've always believed in God, but I wasn't going to church or anything, and I wasn't praying every day, and I wasn't. I would, yeah, I was a sucky God believer, I guess, right? Now that
Yeah.
I know better as well, but I always thought, oh, he's got my back, anyways, right? And then I was sitting on the couch doing my thing as usual, and I just something just come over to me, and I looked up in the sky, and I said, God, I need your help because I am not cutting it. And I need you, like, and I've never asked him for anything. I really haven't. I've always asked him to take care of other people. And this was the first time I need your help. I need your help. And he must have listened to me and said, hey, 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 that Kim girl down there, she's actually finally asking for something. I think I think we're gonna give her what she needs. Because it was a few days later I went and seen my psychologist, and I said to her, I said, this is what I need to do. I said, I cannot control myself because she had said, I didn't tell you to be, she had ordered me off work a month before that. And then my addiction increased. And I was like, she said, I didn't tell you to be off work so you can increase your addictions. And I said, what do you want me to do? Why did you, like, now I have even more time to do whatever. Like, I live alone, that, like, what do you want me to do? I have a problem. So when I saw her the next time, I said, I need to go into rehab. Said, I am obviously not making the best decisions. Every day I say I'm not going to do it. The night before I say I'm not going to do it. Tomorrow I might get through half a day, say I'm not going to do it tonight. And every day I did it. It didn't matter if I was celebrating something, I was sad about something. I like it, you just make up stuff because it's raining outside. Let's have a drink. It didn't matter. Uh, and it wasn't good. So she agreed. She was surprised, I guess, because people go kicking and screaming and not too many people volunteer to go there. But I knew enough that I didn't want that for myself. I don't want to die. Even though I was doing the exact things that would lead to that, I knew I didn't want to die. Holy crap. Not at the end of spending 28 years as a police officer, and what sent me down to being ordered off work was a police incident. It was like the straw that broke my back. And I also I didn't want to retire not getting the help that I needed to get because I knew it would just be a matter of time before something would trigger me and I would fall down again, and be back at square one, but I wouldn't have the support that I needed. Whereas if I, just got the help that I needed, but I also knew at that point that if I did check myself into a rehab, that I was probably ending my career. Now that I don't have anything to substantiate that because I never went back to work, I did wind up retiring instead of going back to work because I was getting better. And I chose not to put myself back into that environment and leave. But that's my thoughts on it.
Were I, like I'm always curious about, like
Do you have memories of when you first started having kind of the, I don't know, like the next day thoughts, or like sitting in your hangover and just thinking that that cannot be it, like that this lifestyle cannot be how you live your life, like, or kind of the, I don't know, like the baby seed of thought that kind of points in another direction than the ones you're sitting in.
Mm, I think when I realized that me going to work every day was the only thing that stood between me and the bottle, that was very concerning. Even though I accomplished things outside of work, like I did my master's throughout all this stuff. Um, Not during the heavy. I finished my last course right when my incident happened at work, and I was lucky I got through that course, but I was bound and determined. But I had I had crying breakouts during the classes with the teacher online. um yeah.
So it started, so you'd say, like early, or, like, like, and what was running through your mind? Like, like I say that because, like, there's a lot of, especially for people around, which is, like a good portion of my guests are, of my listeners are people that, um, have people around them that, like, have used or is using. And I always like to kind of, explain how the brain is wired for someone that's stuck with, like that severe sickness that is alcoholism, where um I made myself promises that, like, this would be the last time, multiple times in my life, right? Um and that's why, like, I asked the question, because my guess, like those thoughts, pretty much everyone has had them, where, like, they're like, Jesus Christ, that can't be it, like, I messed it up again yesterday, or, like, I blacked out, or I threw up, or I spent too much, like, of my rent money, or whatever and whatever. And this cannot be, like, how someone lives his life, like, that's fucking crazy. And, like, that's why, like, I do ask that question, because for so many people, it's just like, how, can they just spend, like, their last dime of rent money, and, keep using, when they know that, like, that they're actually spending that money. Um and, I like people to understand that, like, it's way stronger, um than we can imagine.
Yeah, and it's a vicious cycle, right? So while you're spending the money, the rent money, you don't mind spending it because you're in that euphoric, or so you think. It's actually depressive state, but you're drinking, right? And you're whatever, maybe you're buying rounds, you're feeling great. Yeah. And then the next day, yeah, you wake up in the hangover and then you go, "Oh crap, how much money did I spend?" But then you just drink some more, and then that bad feeling, and you forget about spending the rent money, right? It's just
Yeah.
and then you're spending somebody else's friggin' rent money. You go find your alcoholic friend and you spend their money.
Do you have, how clear is your memory of kind of the last 24 hours of, before you took the decision to go on therapy? Was there like an event or something that happened that, like, has made up your mind?
Do you mean to go into rehab or therapy?
Yeah. Well,
Rehab,
rehab
okay.
first, right?
Yeah, yeah, no, it was just sitting on the couch, and like, enough was enough, right? I'd been off work, I think, not long, man. I knew you're in trouble, Kim. Like, what the hell? Like, it'd been 4 weeks, and since she told me to be off work, and that's how impatient I am with myself, because now I didn't have anything to keep me busy. So now it was even more blatantly obvious that I had a real problem, because I didn't, like I said, like, who's ever off a month, right? Like, the longest I was off ever. You get holidays, you're off 2 weeks, right? And you go back to work. So, you're obviously you're not drinking 24/7. Whereas if you went to Cuba, you might be drinking 24/7,
Yeah.
But I was drinking 24/7 for 28 days in a row, and there wasn't any end. I wasn't like, I very rarely would I ever get a hangover, those days had gone away. Um, I don't know, my body which, yes, it was as I learned, my body had such a high tolerance, like if you looked in my recycling bin, a lady my size should not have been able to drink all that and still be standing. And yet I did. And that's why I drank more, because I'm like, oh my God, how much do I have to drink? And then that's why I went to the good stuff, right? Thinking, oh, the cheap wine, you have to drink more of it. I'll buy a more expensive wine and just drink it faster. No.
Yeah.
Yeah, so you
Crazy.
can everything, right? Like, everything just revolved around it, everything. And not to mention, besides your rent money. Oh my God, you realize, okay, well, now I'm not going to the liquor store and buying one bottle, two bottle, three bottles. I'm buying it by the case every 3 days, and you charge it to credit. So talk about your rent money. When you said that to me, I laughed in my head because I'm like, whatever, I had line of credit. There was no rent. Like, I didn't have to worry about it because I had a tremendous amount of credit because of my job. I got offered credit cards every second day. So, there was a bottomless pit, put it that way, for my purposes, right? I wasn't taking trips upon trips. I was just buying
You would
alcohol.
have died before going broke. That's what you're saying.
Yeah. Yeah. For booze, right? For buying booze, for buying mansions. Yeah. You couldn't buy a quarter of one, but yeah, for buying, alcohol. And I had income coming in. I had very good salary at the time. And my kids they were finishing up university and college, which was being paid for by myself, my line of credit, um, and their dad helping as well. So that they were taken care of. And yeah, I didn't live in a shack. I didn't, we like, there was no reason. My drinking wasn't a result because I was upset, or, well, yeah, I was upset. But I mean, I didn't have, nobody died, like that kind of stuff upset, like it was an everyday thing. It's so hard to explain unless you live it. And I don't know what led to your alcoholism, but I mean, besides my trauma as a child, definitely policing was trauma every day, more than one time a day. So you just get into that habit of, that's how you release it. You go drinking with the guys, and at that time, back in the day, we drank every day after shift.
It's funny you asked that question, Kim, because there's that old age debate around nature or nurture. And I'm going to talk for myself, but I'm convinced that it's nature. I pretty much always tell the same story that I'm not sure, I'm probably between 5 and 8, 9 years old, I'm not too sure, but my father had snowmobiles at the country house, and my father's he's not an alcoholic at all, and actually just doesn't know almost what it means, he saw people that, so most of it comes from my mom's side. So my father was quite foreign about, what was an alcoholic. And so actually, I kind of set the table for, what he wanted to show me. So come springtime, he gives me a long tube and shows me that, if I pull from the gas tank into the tube, it creates kind of that, that siphon. I'm not too sure if it's the right expression, kind of,
Yeah.
it pulls a gasoline, and, so you wanted to show me that kind of that physic process, and so that I could empty the gas tanks into like a 5 gallon container or whatever. And so, he shows me how it works, blah, 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 and, kind of goes doing some other stuff. And I missed it like a few times and got buzzed. And at 46 years old, I'm still am convinced today that 98% of kids would have been scared shitless of what happens, like what happens to them. I wasn't. I actually wanted to recreate the buzz, you know,
No. Yeah.
and there was nothing around me, like there was no trauma. There was, I could, I could actually scratch and, like kind of dig and find shit, but, like it wasn't about that. I just was programmed and built that way. Um, so, like when it comes to that debate, like where, like my alcoholism originates from, actually, like it's in my freaking genes, like it's in me. I was 5 years old, didn't know shit about, addiction or alcoholism or whatever. And, I knew about Sesame Street and, like these kid shows and whatever, like, but, I catch a buzz, which, by the way, a gasoline buzz is a fucked up and heavy buzz. And I should have been scared, but I wasn't, like, so for me, it's like there's no doubt in my mind that, like I was just pretty much like programmed that way. Um, and then eventually, yeah, for sure, like I used with friends and, but quickly realized if again, like it's always looking back, but like looking back, um, I had that edge, like I would not systematically drink more, but like there was really something about, like you said, like drinking faster, catch, a buzz quicker, um, get sick out of alcohol uh, earlier than most of my friends. Um, but then again, like I found a pack of smoke. I probably was 14 or 15 in the first few years of high school, and got I overdosed on cigarette. Like like I threw up like a maniac because I smoked the old pack during lunchtime. Um, and a lot of people would say, "Fuck, man, like you never smoked again." Wrong. I got sick again. But kept smoking. And so, like there's actually, like it's the way I'm built, like it's something that, like I always need to have a level of awareness, like of my, like kind of my own little personality disorder. Like I need to be careful about, like stuff, like my wife will lovingly say my passions. So yeah, I need to be careful about my passions. Um, so you go into rehab. What's the first thing that like you'd say would be like either like the first lesson or kind of the first thing that has struck you, kind of a eye opener or something of like that you kept or you still keep as a lesson that you initially kind of realized when you got there?
As a lesson? Oh,
Yeah.
well, I think play the tape forward. I mean, that's a lesson that I always say to myself when, I mean, as the months have gone by, it's been 2 years now in May, it's gotten easier. And I honestly, even through COVID, I honestly can say, oh, but you know why? Because I replaced the drinking with the eating. So what I did was just replace one habit, I guess, with another habit. I found solitude in food, and I gained all the weight I had managed to take off when I was in rehab. But whatever. So I'm back at stage one pre rehab, except now I don't drink. So I guess I'm ahead there. And, I can always work on that. That's okay. And we're still in COVID, because in the way I figured it, it was better than drinking. But still, I did. I mean, definitely, I can't say that it hasn't been, I guess, given me feel good vibes when I have ice cream, and I'm feeling a little depressed because, you can't go to the gym or make your gym class because there's too many people in it already. Or when are we ever going to get to travel, or, you know what I mean? Like, or,
Absolutely.
oh, we're in a lockdown again, or uh, it's just been, yeah, but I know God's with me. I definitely know. Well, yeah, since that happened with him, um, I really am. I started going back to church, even through COVID, and then church stopped for a bit during COVID, but then it came back. And in November 2020, I got baptized, which was um, amazing, because I remember how I felt a week before I got baptized. And like I said, that oof, I couldn't remember where I was driving to. I was getting lost. Like, I felt like my intelligence had completely gone out the door. And I just accepted it. I just accepted that this was my brain now. And I wasn't drinking, but I just accepted that this was my brain now. And it had to do with my PTSD and the healing. So, and then after I got baptized, it was like within a week of getting baptized, I woke up, because I remember it. I woke up and I went, what's going on? How come I feel different? Like, how come I feel like I can make a decision? I can think. I can maybe type an email. Like, I'm talking 3 sentences without numerous typos. And you're talking, like, from a woman who I was writing essays, right? A year before that, and now I couldn't even write a sentence, because or I'd forget. I'd send an email, I'd forget. A minute later, I just sent it, and I sent it again. I spent a lot of time apologizing, giving that excuse. I'm sorry. I didn't care, because I just felt that people were like looking at me like I had 3 heads, or thinking I had 3 heads, because going like, what is this chick's problem, man? Like, and I felt the need to say, I have PTSD and I'm really sorry. My memory is not very good. And then I'm glad I did, because then they treated me with a little more compassion. You know what I mean? And I
Hmm.
realized at the same time, I realized that, oh, it's okay for me to talk about this. It's not to be ashamed of. And then that led to the, talking about, I am an alcoholic. If you asked me to say that a year and a half ago, I would have freaking ran for the hills. No way. I would never say that, even though I suspected it. But to say it out loud in front of people, poof. Um, and yet now I can say it, and I say it proudly, because I know ears perk up and they want to see who's saying that. And, oh, what can I learn from her? Maybe I am, or maybe I know somebody who is. And wow, how come she's okay about saying that? It's not shameful. It's not. No, it's not. There are more people who are alcoholics than there are admitting that there are, right? It's like
Absolutely.
a hidden, yeah. And yet we all are people, and we all suffer from the same traumas, whether your trauma is written out differently than my trauma. We all suffer. We all suffer, and our loved ones suffer for us. And we're just human. We are just human. And whether your traumas from your work, from your personal life, it's all the same. And whether you take it out with alcoholism, drugs, gambling, fast cars, you need that like whatever. We're all here together. It's just a different name of what it is. It doesn't make you dirty, nasty, not somebody who you want to associate with. I still associate with people who drink too much, and I don't judge them, and I don't care. I feel for them. They know my journey, and I've also inspired others who don't drink anymore, but I didn't say anything to them either. Like, I've never said to anybody, this is what I am doing and you should do that. Or, hey, do you think you're drinking too much? Nah, no way. Because if somebody said that to me, oh, Well, they wouldn't be my friend very long, I wouldn't think, because when you're an alcoholic, your ego is so big that you know everything, right? Because of course you know what's good for you, even though you don't. Um, yeah.
What would you say is your biggest, like the kind of the, like, what, like what is the kind of the last, thought that, like you want people to kind of keep in the back of their mind, um, after listening to, like to your story?
That um, it doesn't, there's always a way out. And yes, I did have suicidal thoughts. I had felt so bad that I understood why people commit suicide. I understood, because if you have to feel that way and there isn't any relief and you can't drink it away and you can't do drugs and get rid of it, or however you want to make that feeling go away, I understand, because I had that feeling. And yeah, I could have done it. I could have. So to anybody who ever feels that way, and if you have, you know what I'm talking about. You would give anything to get rid of that feeling, that you can get past it. You can get past it. And I didn't reach out to anybody in the moment when I felt that way. Um, but I got past it because I knew I wanted to live. And that's what you have to hold on to, because it is a moment in time, and it might be a freaking long moment. Mine was 2 weeks of a moment, but I got through it. And imagine how good you're going to feel when you come out that other end and you know you didn't do something based on just that moment in time. And that's what I would like to leave.
Last thing, Kim, like do you share, like, like out there, kind of, like the your life's path to inspire others, like is there ways for people to find you and to reach out to you?
Oh yeah. I actually this I'm so blessed that again, right? That all these things, when you think your life turns one way and it goes another way, I realize now my policing is done, but the rest of my life has just opened up into things that I never even thought. And actually being an alcoholic and coming forward and going to rehab is probably one of the best things that's ever happened. I was lucky enough to write 2 chapters in a book, so that would be one way if people wanted to learn more about me, they could read. But they also reading 9 other inspirational writers as well that share the book with me. It's called "Women Empowering Women to Succeed: Legacy." The publisher is named Randy with an I. It's a woman, Randy Goodman. It's on Amazon for like $1.29 or something. So it's amazing, and it's the 6th in a series. Uh, like I said, it's just wonderful. So I'm able to share. I'm able to share my stories that way and inspire people, and do these podcasts. And I'm still helping people, which is what I felt my life calling was when I was 20, except now I'm doing it in such a way that I'm I know my personal safety and my mental health are in a good place, and everything that I do still comes from love. And as well, yes, another way to get me here, so that I didn't say, is I'm not able to go back to a full-time job because some days are not good, right? And some days
Hmm.
are better. So the best thing I could do was to like try and be an entrepreneur. So that's what I'm doing. So that people can contact me at drinktohealth. .ca. You can go there and send me an email from that site. And yeah, that gives you an idea of what I do now in retirement, I guess. But again, and it's helping people still, but helping them with their health,
Yeah.
which is, I guess, what policing is. But it's all, it ain't financial. But
Yeah, and it's perspective, right? Like like it's like you said, like it's it doesn't go against kind of, what you define as your purpose in life. It's just like a different angle and different perspective of helping others. Kim, you've got quite an interesting and inspiring story. I thank you for being part of my own journey, which is 2 years and a half in, 160 something episodes recorded. It's I'm as you probably are feeling and living it. It gives us as much, if not even more, than it gives the others. And it's for me, it's a numbling, and it fills me so much, to meet with, people, and, actually, I'm not only humbled but filled with gratitude when, some stranger named Kim reaches out to me and, offers me to be part of that. It's and for that, I thank you. And every links that Kim has referred to for listeners, you can find in the description. That podcast has no sponsors, no ads. It's it's a free it's a free podcast, and there's no revenue generating parts of that podcast. So again, Kim, thank you. I wish you the best. It's a strong, early, and interesting, fascinating sobriety story that you've described. And thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Alex.
Take care.
Thank you. You too.
Bye-bye.